Hey, this is Jeff, and welcome back to the Coito Ergo Sum DLC crossover. The game crashed at the end of the last episode, and I replayed everything from my last save off-screen, more or less the same as what you saw. The main differences were that the ammo box in the RV that had 150 rounds of 308 armor piercing didn't spawn any 308 at all this time. Boo. And I was ready for the tunnelers at the rest stop, so I didn't get mauled. Yay! I went back to Parump to unload souvenirs, and we now rejoin your regularly scheduled programming. And thanks to the comments for pointing out that I missed a note on this dead NCR trooper. At 0600 hours, Bravo Team will conduct sweep and clear operations in advance of the main force. Early intelligence suggests the tunnels are only sparsely populated by small subterranean semi-humanoids which are easily cowed by bright light and loud noises. Bravo Team has been issued flashbang grenades for this purpose and is expected to meet minimal resistance. Tragically over-optimistic, but it does confirm Ulysses' claim that the NCR wants to control the divide. Which, of course they do. It's an alternate route from their main area of control in California to the Mojave. And given their attitude toward other factions there, and New Vegas in particular, I have no reason to doubt his implication that their presence in the divide before the disaster wasn't exactly welcomed with open arms by the residents. Particularly if I was one of or influential with those residents. At least if my attitude before I was shot in the head was anything like it is now. And speaking of notes, assuming the enemies along the high road haven't respawned either, we should have a few minutes apiece to listen to Ulysses' logs while we walk back to Ashton.
Big, empty. There's something hidden there. A crater. Past wind and sand. So deep in the desert, there's no turning back. Finding the crater was an accident. Was following the weather patterns. The divide sky torn like that. Man's violence, not nature's. That violence in the sky had a source. Tracked it, like following a river current. Left the colors to mark my way, like always. Case someone finds them, learns the pattern. The courier might. But I thought sand and wind would never end. Came to the crater. And there was an old world facility. A weather station at the edge, still raking the sky with electricity and generators. And beyond it, saw the rest of the old world hell there. All carved up like garden plots. Had to see what was there. Couldn't leave it be. Things sleep in the big empty. The Brotherhood woke them up. Can't move quiet any more than the two-headed bear can. And when they woke up, it was like all of history waking up at once. Almost didn't make it out. Almost. Left with answers I never intended.
His perspective of events we heard about from the think tank, the interesting bit being that he went there to discover the source of the divide's weather.
I walked the Great Salt Lake as Kaiser's eye, then his hand. Mongrels there, 2 legs and 4. Saw the walls of New Canaan and the scavengers circled. Had the strength or fire to take. Too high, too strong. White legs. They were born for war. They run to it, hungry for battle. Yet their hunger is to be a part of history, something larger. Like the Legion, as always, brought them a message from Kaiser. If New Canaan burns, Kaiser might see them. Might. Even the chance was a lie. To honor Kaiser, destroy the history of New Canaan and the way they carry it in their generations and family. Kaiser respects such strength, I told them. That was truth, even if strength wasn't the word. Obedience. You must be willing to kill anyone. Children, mothers, the weak, elders. If these New Canaanites value the generations, that is what you must kill. It was like Ulysses was speaking through me. Use the night, silence, and fire to change their words to please, to screams. No need for bombs. ancestry going back thousands of years. Another death of history, lost to time. The new Canaanites. They supplied medicine, food traded with others, civilization, a hand from the past, not history. But maybe a past deeper, farther than that, to a place where this God really exists. If so, his handiwork and people belong elsewhere, not in this place. Another symbol like bear and bull, with no meaning in the present.
That explains his animosity toward the NCR. He was in Caesar's Legion, probably a Frumentarius. That's a significant revelation for Courier Jeff because he can't rule out the possibility that Ulysses is still working for them. But that seems pretty unlikely because whatever game he's playing is much more subtle and patient than Caesar's usual schemes, and everything we've heard indicates Linnaeus is even less subtle and patient than Caesar was. Plus, he sounded disgusted by the things he'd done, so if he left the Legion, maybe the next tape will give us a hint as to why.
Emptiness here, like the sands of the great salt lake, echoed, the beating in the divide sky, like storm drums of the white legs, ran with them on the salt beds at Caesar's command. Cut the throats of the two-headed bear, cut all communities off. Use storm, sky, disease, fire, starvation, and the violence of the ignorant to ruin all who could. Might stand against him. But the white legs, they couldn't live on their own like most scavengers. So gave them purpose, turned their hunger into a weapon. The wall of New Canaan, too high for Caesar, too proud maybe. Or maybe something there from his past that needed killing. Memory of Graham. Helped them dig out Canaan's supply caches and other secrets the sands hid. Bunkers filled with powered weapons even the Brotherhood might desire. They call these new weapons storm drums in the firing of shells. Taught them the power in the casings to channel the spirits in their guns. Me, they called me the flag bearer. Glory in my hand, in my staff that still bore the weight of the old world, just as the symbol on my back did. I learned their weapons as a means of respect, and when it came their turn to pay respect to me, history came rushing back. Can't escape what's been done. History's there, no matter how far you walk.
Unfortunately, not much there about Ulysses himself that we didn't already gather from the previous tape, although it does provide another perspective on the events that led to the conflict in Honest Hearts. Now, this switch opens the silo door over here. This silo is in lockdown mode in preparation for launch. No entry or exit is permitted until the launch sequence is completed, which is just like the one in Hopeville, except the control room hadn't been blown open there. And, of course, nothing happened there except the door opened and we got into the silo. I mentioned this in the Skills Dash series. I'm not aware of any in-game lore that explains why the doors are tied to the launch sequence, but my headcanon, based on how the pre-war government is portrayed throughout the franchise, is that they probably claimed it was to prevent enemy agents from interfering with the launch, which it would have done, but they really wanted to make sure their own personnel didn't have second thoughts and abandon their posts when they were ordered to start Armageddon. But Ulysses said this is just like the one in Hopeville, and everything he said so far has checked out with what we already know. So Courier Jeff has no way of knowing that anything will happen other than the door opening so he can get into the silo. So let's go throw the switch. Even the switch prompt says open Ashton Silo, which is exactly what we want. But this time we get a little more than that.
back online. Listen to me, Eddie. If you stay here, they'll dismantle you for parts. You have to go now. I've uploaded destination coordinates for our outpost in Navarro into your system. I want you to go to the Enclave there, okay? Do you understand me? It's going to be a long journey, my little friend. You'll have to fly very far and fly very fast. Can you do that? I know you can. Be careful out there, Eddie. Maybe I'll see you again someday.
Not sure why this is tied to survival skill, but you're trying to get all the way to Navarro? Isn't that in NCR territory? Yes, Eddie. I'm sure you didn't make the entire trip in one go. It's still impressive. Come on, we need to keep going. And we level up. We can max out explosives and melee weapons. And one more unarmed book will get us 2 straight hundreds. A far cry from Courier Max, who got 2 straight 100s at level 22, but better than Lone Wanderer Jeff, who sadly hit the level cap in Fallout 3 just short of perfect, and there weren't enough skill books left to make up the difference. Another shameless plug for the Skills Dash series, but most sources say you can hit straight hundreds in New Vegas when your level is in the mid-40s, and they universally say it can't be done below level 30, so I'm particularly proud of how that turned out. Anyway, I know exactly what my last perk will be. I took a rank of intense training when I hit level 48 in Old World Blues just so I could meet the requirements for this one. Tunnel Runner. Movement speed is greatly increased while sneaking in light armor. I can't deny there are a couple other tempting ones. I mean, there are tons, but particularly for Courier Jeff's build. Roughing It gives you the well-rested benefit if you sleep outside in an unowned bed, which in normal mode is kind of meh, but in hardcore mode it can be a lifesaver because it heals hit points and crippled limbs. And the second rank of the GRX implant would be nice, but I've never even used the first rank once, so I'm sticking to the plan. Tunnel Runner. It looks like the missile hit somewhere on the other side of the divide. You think you could reach the location of the blast from Hopeville. That is, if you feel brave enough to explore ground zero of a nuclear blast. Oh, and I forgot to mention when I was looking at perks, I confirmed off-screen that the portable bedroll we picked up last week does not count as an owned bed, so it's basically useless in hardcore mode unless you also take the Roughing It perk. But if you have both, it's a game changer. And to be perfectly honest, I'm just stalling because we're about to kick off the infamous Ashton Silo elevator ride, and it's not going to be pretty. But I guess I can't put it off any longer. The game throws a lot of explosions and camera shake at you to impart a sense of urgency, but as far as I know, there's no timer that just auto-kills you if you dawdle too long. And it's well worth waiting for the first few tunnelers to spawn so you can kill them before you actually start the elevator, because once the platform starts moving, you're stuck until it reaches the bottom, and the less of them you have on there with you at any one time, the better. Like I say, I'm pretty sure those explosions are just for atmosphere. I don't think they ever block the shaft or can even hurt you once you start down. And in a few seconds, there's one already. Forgive me if my commentary is less coherent than usual because this gets pretty intense. Camera shake is not helpful for aiming. Reload. We're at the bottom. Yes. That was pretty dicey, but they didn't get any knockdowns on me, and I had quite a few auto-inject stim packs. I was still spamming the stim pack hotkey, and I don't know if they stack, so I might have wasted a few, but in that situation, better safe than sorry. Heal my crippled limbs. Crap. In the Skills Dash series, I died twice in that part, and the first time I got through it, the game crashed when I used that door, so I meant to drop a save before I went through, but with all the adrenaline, I forgot. Alright, let the looting commence.
Status report. Green.
Hello.
All systems within acceptable operating parameters.
Ow. So much for the limbs I just healed. Commissary. And there's an auto dock. Makes sense, as this was the infirmary. Not to mention extremely convenient, as I just stood in front of a sentry bot and let it shoot me. And I needed a rad scrub too, so even better. There we go. I'm assuming the big door with a hard lock has something good behind it. Let's find out. Oh, I see a destroyed iBot over there. That's worth it, even if there's nothing else in here. iBot upgrade circuit board. Camaraderie perk rank 3, giving you and Eddie both +2 damage threshold. Oh yes. I believe I am now officially tougher than any medium armor in the game in a t-shirt. And most of the heavy armor, too, except for some of the better power armor. And yes, if I actually wore armor, it would stack with all of my perks and buffs, and I could basically go toe-to-toe with a Deathclaw, but that's not really Courier Jeff's style. And down into the wreckage of the silo itself. Now, Courier Jeff is naturally a bit chagrined at having accidentally launched a nuclear missile. But again, there was no hint of a launch when he used the console at the Hopeville silo, and it seems like a fluke that this one got off the ground based on all the damage. The way forward is a hole it burned into the floor, but there's something in here I want to get first. Well, this isn't it, but Courier Max didn't want the XP for picking the lock, so let's see what's inside. Ooh. 12.7mm submachine gun. I have one of those at home, and I love it. The nail gun's been getting the job done on enemies with lots of health but low damage threshold, but I have the carry capacity, and I can always use a spare to keep mine in top condition. Yeah, I'm taking it. Right here. Skill book. Science. Don't need it, but there it is if you do. And now we can head down into the hole. I think this is actually pretty short. Oh, but there are enemies. Tunnelers. Well, that's actually pretty clever. They obviously used the holes to get behind you, but that one dove in to get away from my fire. Its only mistake was coming back out. Now, if there aren't any more, I was saying the door to Sunstone Tower is right up here. This is the location of one of the biggest troll placements of a skill book in the game. The only one I think is worse is the one under Dean's bed in Dead Money. I think I'm going to clear out the whole interior before I try to get the book so we don't get interrupted in the middle of a delicate operation. Well, delicate isn't the right word, but you'll see. It's behind that bookcase, but there's something very close. Right there. But it's not alone. Oh, I forgot to mention, I said last week the tunneler hides were probably crafting items, and I'd see what you can make with them the next time I found a campfire or a workbench. I was wrong. I checked back in Pahrump. Nothing in the menu. Most recipes just unlock at certain levels of survival skill, but there are a few you have to find or buy an actual recipe to unlock, and I thought maybe it was one of those, so I looked it up on the Fallout Wiki, and it turns out they aren't crafting items at all. They don't do anything, except they have a pretty decent value to weight ratio when you sell them. Which early to mid-game, I'm all over stuff like that, cigarettes, whatever. But these days, it's either got to be a big ticket item or have weight of 0 if I'm only picking it up to sell. Like pre-war money, for example. Okay, they're all dead, and the book is behind this bookshelf. You can't even see it unless you use the console to turn off clipping and go through the wall behind it. The only way you'd ever find it organically is if you use a grenade when you're fighting the tunnelers and it gets blown out. And I don't have any real grenades. That's not good. The bigger the physics impulse, the better. I think I used a plasma grenade in the Skills Dash series, but an incendiary or a flashbang might work. Guess we'll find out. Just lob it in the corner behind the bookshelf. Let's see if that did anything. Oh, I think I see a corner of it. Yep, just a little tiny red corner. It's a sneak book, by the way. Need to creep up and find a little gap between the collision detection of the bookshelf and the collision detection of the wall. Oh, there it was. No, there it is. Just find the right spot and you've got it. Oh! Moved the mouse 1 pixel while I was blabbing and lost it. Hold on. Come on, I know you're there. Got it. So, onto the roof, where Ulysses is going to force greet us again.
Hopeville, High Road, Ashton, tiny cracks in the earth, nothing compared to the road carved ahead. Before you, this is the edge of the divide. Ahead lies your work, the history you burned in the earth, what you brought to the people here.
And once again, even though Courier Jeff would be a bit more suspicious now that he knows Ulysses used to be with the Legion, he still wouldn't jump to conclusions. Let's just see what he has to say. What happened here?
You delivered a package, had markings that matched those in the divide. Not all, but enough. Military markings from someplace the bear had savaged in the west. Maybe seeing those markings on it reminded you of home, made you carry it.
You said I brought it from the west.
It was a device, a detonator, one I'd never seen before, or heard before. You carried that thing to the divide. I know because I followed you as you walked the road, watched you do it. You brought it here, to the community you built, and you are responsible for what happened after, when the device opened, started to speak. When it did, the divide answered back. Those missiles you've seen, buried in their silos. They exploded beneath the ground, cracked the landscape. Sand, ash, the dead. The divide skies became a graveyard.
Which explains how a community could have survived the storms caused by the meteorology station at Big Mountain, because they weren't nearly as bad before the nukes going off underground sent millions of tons of contaminants into the atmosphere and made them really deadly. And yes, I'm deflecting because the idea that I caused those detonations is a pretty tough pill to swallow. If the package was a detonator, why would I have brought it here?
I've walked the east. You've walked the west. More than I have. Circle Junction, Reno, Vault City. Word a few at Fort Aradesh. Fort abandoned. Even further west than that, Brahmin drives on the big circle. Whatever you saw out there wasn't enough to make you stay. Maybe the markings on the package reminded you of the road home.
Now, while Courier Jeff would love to think that Ulysses told him a bunch of true things he could verify to establish credibility and set him up for a big lie later, I think at this point he'd have a very bad feeling that this is true too. And if it is true, he can't deny responsibility even if it was an accident. I mean, he could, but the whole thing of role-playing Courier Jeff is that he's me in a different life, and I couldn't. So if you saw this happen, how did you survive?
Should have died there, but now that I know you live, the machines here saved me. I was the only survivor, or thought I was. Your package, the message inside, awoke medical machines, close to the one that shadows you, began to build themselves, then others. They only take what parts they find in the divide, never roam beyond it. Can't even leave the silos without a human to shadow. Like hounds. Maybe they saw the flag on my jacket, thought I was of America. If so, history saved me. A sign.
Well, I do understand how a package could have set off the bombs. It was obviously a detonator or a key or something. But I'm not dodging responsibility, and he could be way more sure that it was me than I can be that it wasn't, so I guess we'll go with that. I don't understand how a package could have done this.
You will. I'll show the Mojave, Bear and Bull, the way of it. How couriers can break nations. What happened here can happen again. You already proved it. What you did in Ashton, the silo there.
Now, remember in the first episode I talked a little bit about the polarized opinions on the meta-narrative in Lonesome Road, how letting you leave at any time subverts the game trope that no matter how seriously you take your role-playing, your character's primary motivation always ends up being your quest log? Well, this is that writ large. Some people think it's genius that if you do what the game tells you is required to complete the next objective, you accidentally launch a nuke, and that's both metaphorically and literally a repetition of your character's in-game backstory. Others think it's cheap and undermines its own concept because there's no real choice, no way to say, screw that, it sounds too dangerous, and officially bail out even if it means failing the quest. And I think both arguments have merit, but I also think they may be taking it just a little too seriously. And not because it's a video game. I'll be the first to tell you, I think good storytelling in a game can be just as powerful as good storytelling in movies or literature. But people can take those things too seriously too, especially when they get bent out of shape and spiteful if you don't accept their analysis and opinion. Like, literally millions of hours have been spent arguing about Shakespeare. But really, Hamlet's soliloquy in 10 seconds? Life sucks. Should I kill myself or go on a murder spree? Murder spree sounds more fun. The end. Let the hate mail commence. Anyway, I had no idea the silo was active until the missile was in the air.
Didn't stop you though. Like carrying the chip to Vegas. Old world death in your hand. Pieces of the old world like that just need someone careless enough to take them where they need to go. To do their killing.
Hey, you told me it was just like the silo in Hopeville. You didn't say anything about it actually launching. Yes, I threw the switch without knowing exactly what it would do, and that's on me, but you've got no room to be on a high horse about it. I still think we can be friends, but I'm increasingly suspicious of your motives. You wanted me to come to the Divide. I'm here. Now what?
Your roads are not done. Haven't walked it full yet. Not nearly enough. The way ahead and below leads to the heart of the Divide. And there, you and I, we'll have an ending to things.
Yeah. I'm not done talking to you yet. There's more I want to know.
Already heard you once, long ago, and loud enough for history to hear. Tired of your messages. Still, curiosity drove you this far. Let's see what else it can do.
You said you made a promise not to kill me, but the last time I asked you about it, you were very evasive. And as you pointed out yourself, sometimes I make big mistakes with drastic consequences when I act on incomplete information. As the incomplete information that led to my most recent mistake came from you, hopefully you can understand my suspicion. Just as I hope you understand that if I act on incomplete information about someone who claims they don't want to kill me but whom I don't completely trust, and I make a big mistake with drastic consequences, we will almost certainly both regret it. So, what gives?
Caesar's orders. Sometime before I realized the why of it. Wasn't just you. All couriers. No telling how many were Legion. Maybe all of them. Wasn't sure about you until the divide. All the NCR burning. That much death. It bears the mark of a Legion hand. But you killed like NCR, like Hanlon, with mines, bombs, missiles, killed Legion along with the bear, like a coward kills from a distance. If you were Legion, then NCR beat you. The West changed you.
Oh, no. No. I might have amnesia, but I still have attitudes and outlooks and personality, and there is no way I ever worked for the Legion. I mean, brain damage is a tricky business, and I know it's possible those things changed, but even if somebody with my face and my fingerprints did those things with my hands, it wasn't me. It wasn't the mind that's in this body right now. I know I was just preaching about accountability and taking responsibility for what happened in the divide, even if it was an accident, but what you're suggesting is a whole different ballgame. For instance, I let the brains in the think tank live, even though there was a very strong possibility that they committed unspeakable atrocities before and after the Great War, because their memories and cognitive processes had been tampered with so much that I just couldn't convince myself that killing them now would be justice, or even vengeance in any meaningful sense of the word. So while I can't deny it per se, could you be specific? What's our history? How do you know me?
I knew all of you, your name, your road to and from the divide, what that meant for the Legion. We never spoke, knew you through your actions, knew you'd walked the West as I'd walked the East, learned different lessons, and I would never have discovered the divide without you.
Right. So the whole I was a Legion agent thing was just speculation on your part, and not very well-founded speculation at that. But speaking of Legion agents, I found some recordings from you on the road. I apologize for being glib when I was joking around about killing Caesar just as a sort of proxy Hamlet thing to help one of the prostitutes who works for me get clean, but the Legion is obviously an existential threat to my business, so one way or the other he had to go. And the same is true of Linnaeus. I hope that's not going to be a problem for you.
The tapes. Didn't think those would be found. Weren't worth the words anyway. Not like I'd forget what happened. Had the tech from the big empty recorder a woman gave me on its last legs. Didn't survive the road. Cast it and the tapes aside. If you heard them, they're of no consequence. Ramblings. Reminders for a man who doesn't need them.
Remember when we were talking about the divide being my home, and I said I've walked a lot of roads and it didn't matter, and you pointed out correctly that it really does? Well, the shoe's on the other foot now. You wouldn't have recorded those messages if they didn't matter to you.
Maybe not. Who's to say? You, perhaps, found them. Heard them after I cast them aside. Maybe there was purpose in that. If they matter, if history matters, we'll see at the end of the road.
In the logs you mentioned a tribe called the Twisted Hares. Was that your tribe?
Twisted Hares are dead, lost at dry wells, died in Ulysses' smile. Won't discuss their fate with you. Not now. Their past is mine to keep. Walk farther. See me face to face. You might earn more. Now words keep you without me adding to them.
Fair enough. And in the logs about Big Mountain, you said you'd spoken with history.
I did. It was madness. Asked them a question in anger. Got an answer. More than I expected. Answer told me what happened here at the Divide, the how of it, and that was enough. The tape has the telling of it. Don't need me adding to the questions already there.
Well, that's not much more helpful than what the brains told me about your encounter. Well, this canyon is miles long, maybe longer. Where can I find you?
At the end of the Divide, through the trenches and wreckage, that's where you'll find me. My new home, here, amongst dead men. You and that machine. Keep your eyes on the tower that cuts the horizon. You'll find your way. Made it this far. Not much farther to go.
And in just a second, flares. There are marked men, and they know we're coming. I don't see any yet, but I see 3 warheads, and we know they camp around them because they like the radiation. 1. 2. And 3. And I still see red on the map, but maybe now they'll come out of cover to see what's going on. Oh, one made it up here. Almost. Okay, I think that's all of them. If I edit out the misses, that'll be a badass montage. Just don't rewind and check my ammo counter before and after. Oh, there's Ulysses. I mentioned last week that he's always nearby when he hacks Eddie to talk to us. And I'm still not sure if he needs to be in close proximity to do it, or if he's just following our progress and starts up a chat when he spots us. Anyway, there's a stairway down to the bottom of the building in this room, but there's also a sort of bridge to another section. Something green on the compass. Weird. And the bridge leads to excited beeping. There's something good in here. And it is, in fact, another one of Ulysses' logs. And since I'm pretty sure the marked men in this area are all dead, we probably have a few minutes of peace to listen to it.
The Whitelegs meant to show respect, bribe me for Kaiser's favor, echoing mannerisms and words, showed them tech caches, taught them the workings of chamber and powder, spoke of Kaiser's pride in those that used such things. Lies. And then they tried to honor me, not the Legion. They brought me before the campfire one night, showed me how they changed themselves, how they wore their hair now. It was like my entire dead tribe in the firelight, teeth grinning red in the dark, eager corpses, blood-covered ghosts. They had taken my braids, the way of the twisted hairs, as if it showed they were like me, of me, while every knot in their braids spoke of raping, violence, and ignorance of what the knots meant. They thought to show respect, defiled it, lost myself in trying to read the braids they wove. When I remembered, they had put no meaning in it. They had no history of what it meant. They didn't even know the insult in the twists, knots. And the dry wells came rushing back. The Whitelegs circled like that. It was like looking at the dead of my tribe, reborn as ghosts, hateful, hungry, bowing to Kaiser. Another history. Gone. Carried by me alone.
And there's the catalyst for his split with the Legion. He was already skeptical and maybe even disgusted by Caesar's obsession with wiping out the New Canaanites and any trace of their existence, but when he saw what the Whitelegs had become, he suddenly realized what a tragedy it was that his own tribe had been assimilated. I don't remember there being any option to tell him we helped Joshua save the Sorrows and dead horses, and by extension the surviving New Canaanites, but if there is, we'll definitely take it. It might ease his conscience, or it might not, but at least it would give him some closure.
Dad! Hey, Dad! Check out this robot I found!
Careful, Tommy. I've never seen a robot like that before. It might be dangerous.
He's not dangerous. Look, he's hurt. Can we take him home, Dad? Maybe Mom can fix him.
I don't know, son. What if someone comes looking for it?
Please? He looks so lonely. Maybe if Mom fixes him, he can help her out around the garage.
All right, boy. But if he breaks anything, it's coming out of your allowance.
Yay! He'll be just like Ralphie. Only this one's not a toy.
Where did this happen? Illinois. So that's where you got that plate. The other you, I mean. The original Eddie and the Mojave, the one that the machines in the Divide made all these copies of, was patched with an Illinois license plate. Sounds like that kid was pretty fond of you. Why did you leave? You gave that up to continue Whitley's mission? Even though the whole point of the mission Whitley gave you was to save you from being recycled for Colonel Autumn's Hellfire armor project? And another reference to Navarro, which apparently I know about because I'm good at making stuff at campfires. Well, I guess I picked up the reference to Navarro from Eddie, but for some reason asking about it being in NCR territory was behind a survival check. Courier Jeff hasn't done any of Arcade's loyalty mission stuff, so he doesn't know much about the Enclave. Ooh. Or maybe the survival check was related to surviving being shot in the head by Benny and implies some memories of the time the Courier spent in California are coming back. Or maybe I'm reading way too much into it. Anyway, let's go. Mole rats. That's what the green on the compass was. Don't know how you guys survived all the tunnelers and deathclaws, but good luck. I'm curious about this ledge. In the Skills Dash series, I scooted around this rubble to get into the municipal building so the marked men down on the road couldn't follow me. But that was after I already detonated the warhead that clears the path forward, right there. There are more marked men in the building over there. Don't see any at the moment. Anyway, there's a much easier way up once you clear the warhead. Like I said, Courier Max just came this way to confuse the marked men chasing him. But this rubble doesn't change, so no, that feels like an invisible wall. Yeah, definitely. So that gets removed when the warhead goes off. And I still don't see any marked men, so I guess we'll go blow up the warhead. And in just a second, that building falls and blocks our way out of the next area. I always thought that was a very cool touch. Like, there could have just been rubble in the road forcing you to go through the caves, but doing it like that reinforces the feeling that the player's actions are having significant effects on the game world. And I'm going to do a little looting while the blast zone cools off. There's one. And the kill cam gave away your buddy. And it looks like there's one more still in there. If I jump off the roof, he'll see me, but if he comes out of the building, I'll see him. And it's well established by now they're not stupid. But you know what might draw him out? Care to come investigate? No? Well, I guess we'll do it the hard way. Shoulder-mounted machine gun. Take that and I can probably repair mine close to full condition. I think this building next door has the last Ulysses log. Yeah, right there, under the mattress. If I can grab it. I hope the explosion didn't knock it behind the bed's collision detection. No. Got it. And I'm pretty sure all the marked men that spawn after you blow up the warhead are dead, so let's give that a listen.
Have you ever wanted to speak to history? Just to know the why of it? I don't. Not any longer. There's old stories about gods and men, past history into myth, where the gods, they're like children, petulant, cruel. Those were the voices of the big empty. The past. Couldn't leave well enough alone. Had to ask the why of it. Their answers were madness, and power stronger than me. Would take 100 Elijahs, someone tougher than him or I, to best of them in their dome. They didn't know why they were there, what had led to that point. Their names, like serpents devouring themselves, cannibalizing their own thoughts. When all seemed lost, thought it was the end. My anger gave me strength to ask them my last question. Who are you that do not know your history? And they awoke, for a short time. The flag you wear, they said, we remember. America. It wasn't just a flag to them. It was a place, an idea they had cared for. Once. They told me what it was like to grow in that world. All they had done to lift it up, protect it. They didn't know it was gone. That. Yet, they had cared once, before forgetting their history. As they were talking, kept seeing the courier's shadow behind them, giving each their words weight. History cast aside, a home left behind. I listened. I asked, was there anything left? Anything that still carries America's voice? And they told me I had already been there. I and one other, walking right out of history, deeper than we knew. They told me what lies in the heart of the divide, what can be found there, and the words to awaken it, and the one to speak them.
And that's both enlightening and ominous. But first, let's check out that destroyed Eyebot that was hidden behind one of the warheads. Camaraderie perk rank 4, increasing your damage with beam weapons by +5. Eddie also gains +5 damage while he is your companion. Not bad. Courier Jeff warmed up to energy weapons a bit since we started the DLC, but he's still primarily a ballistic weapons guy. Now, we know Ulysses went to Big Mountain to discover the source of the storms after the explosions I caused made them even more deadly. So at a minimum, Courier Jeff would think Ulysses either knew or suspected what would happen at Ashton, and maybe even hoped that he'd blow himself up in the Hopeville silo. And while I try to keep what I know and what Courier Jeff knows separate, he might even be starting to suspect that there's more to it than just Hopeville and Ashton, which of course there is. This is the easy way up to the municipal building I mentioned, but I don't think I want to open that can of worms right now. I've been at this a while and I've picked up quite a few souvenirs, so I think it's time to head home for some sleep and hot food. And yes, the invisible wall around that rubble is gone now. You know what? I still have a few pounds of carry capacity, and that guy had a plasma caster. Take it home and I can probably repair mine close to full condition. In fact, there's not really any reason to head back with any room left in my pockets at all. See? 12-gauge slugs for Cicada. Take the holes, too. Anyway, I'm going to call it a day. Like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you next week.